Hello, I'm Michelle Burden along with Lisa Burkhart-Worley and Renee Rollins. And we are glad to have you join us here on Pop Talk today, the show where you never know what topics might pop up. If you like ice cream like I do, then you are in for a sweet treat today, as our guest made a living as a leader in a well-known ice cream business. You are going to want to hear his powerful story. Lisa has his introduction. Lisa?
Thanks so much, Michelle. I met our guest, Ricky Dickson, at the Roaring Lambs Writers Conference. He was there because he has written a book about his life and some of the stories from his work as CEO and president of Bluebell Creameries, called One Scoop at a Time. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I love Bluebell ice cream, probably a little bit too much. And I have not found any other ice cream that comes close to its flavor. Ricky began his career with Bluebell in 1981 as a territory manager in Dallas before transferring to Fort Worth as a sales manager the following year. His road to CEO included career stops in San Antonio, where I'm from, woohoo, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, back to Dallas, Kansas City. Then in 2003, he moved to Brenham, where Bluebell is headquartered. In 2010, he became vice president of sales and marketing for Bluebell and was also appointed to serve on the board of directors. Then in 2017, he was promoted to president, and in 2019, he was elected CEO and president of the company. Ricky has won some awards, including the International Dairy Foods Association Laureate Award for his prolonged contributions to the development and growth of dairy. And he was also inducted into the Dairy Products Institute of the Texas Hall of Fame. What a journey you've had, Ricky. You know you did excellent work, because you don't get promoted like that over and over and over again without integrity. And you must have led with that, and also just with diligence. So welcome to Pop Talk. We're just so glad to have you on the show. And I know it was somewhat of a divine appointment for us when we met at the Roaring Lambs Writers Conference. But your experience with Bluebell, it's kind of interesting how these things happen, began as a college class project at Baylor University, the Bears, in Waco, Texas. Can you share about that?
You bet. And first off, thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be on your show and to be able to talk about Christ and about Bluebell and about my journey with what I feel is one of the greatest companies. But yes, the book itself, One Scoop at a Time, is that very story, is how God led me from high school. I chased a girl actually to Baylor, and as things would have it, as soon as we got there, literally the first week, we decided that we were not supposed to be together. And so I say that that's how God got me to Baylor. Not that I didn't want to go there before, but that was definitely the catalyst. And so while I was at Baylor, I had a consumer marketing class, and we had to follow a company for the full semester and how they relate to the consumer. And so I went back to the apartment. Do what college students do. You call your parents and say, help. And so Dad answered and said, you know, I'm sitting here reading an article about this little ice cream company down in Brenham, Texas. And of course, even then, I grew up in San Antonio. I'm in Waco, but I'm not familiar with Brenham. And it's only a couple hours about southeast from Waco. And so I thought, who doesn't like ice cream? This sounds tremendous. Right. Picked up the phone, called, and they said, absolutely, come on down, and we would love to help you through your journey. And it was really during that time what I saw a culture that just seemed different. Ice cream is one thing, but it was more than that. And so that really was the true beginnings on what led about a couple of years later, when the opportunity, as I got close to graduating, what's next, God? I said, I'm gonna go put my application in and just see what happens. And so I went back down. Luckily, they remembered me. First question is, how'd you do in your paper? Yeah. So that part was good. And really from that point, they said, it was in the summer. I graduated a semester early, so I had the fall semester still to go through. But they said, you have a job, you can pick either Dallas or Houston. Oh, wow. And I decided Dallas. We had just entered the Dallas market as a company. And so I thought this will be fun. Didn't know anyone, but I thought, let's go up to Dallas and sell some ice cream. Well, eat some ice cream and then sell whatever's left.
Yes. The job.
Exactly.
You're pretty thin for having worked at Bluebell for so many years.
It's an exercise program. Just eat as much as you can, exercise.
So did you feel like the class project took you to Bluebell, when you were working through that, I mean, did you immediately start feeling like, you were talking about the culture.
Right.
So did you feel like, boy, this is where I want to be because of the culture, or was it the class project combination?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, really, truly, my testimony is I accepted Christ at 10 years old. And my parents really instilled within me, it's more than just believing in Jesus. It's living a life in a relationship with Jesus. And so all through high school, that was very, that came natural. Now, as a high school student, there's a lot of things I don't want to talk about today, but we will talk about the positive things. I think that it just seemed unique. I had not worked anywhere. But I was a marketing journalism major looking at either public relation or advertising or ice cream. And I thought, well, let's interview with the ice cream company just to see. And what I was looking for is where can I plant myself in a career? Not necessarily for the financial side of it, not necessarily for the prestige side of it, but truly, because you work, and the people that you work with are your second family. And so I thought, there's something about this little creamery that just stood out. And so thankful. And I do believe it was a God thing. I think that God was opening that door and saying, grab a scoop and get to work.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Bluebell saw tremendous growth from 1990 till about 2014. Can you explain a little bit about the company and how that expansion happened during those years?
Sure. What I loved about Bluebell, and it's going to sound really weird, especially from the business side of things, it was not the goal to be number one today. Let's just see how big we can get as fast as we can get. Let's go into a market and take our product and make sure that we keep the quality there and make sure we can take care of the market as best we can before we take the next market on. And so our president at the time said it was a cinch by the inch, hard by the yard. And so
I like that.
cinch by the inch meant a lot of the ripple effect as we went into Houston and were there from the 60s, led us into Louisiana in the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s, also into Oklahoma. And so that ripple just kind of took us to today. We're in 23 states.
Wow.
But we still not even half the country per se. When I say not being number one, we want to be the very best we can be, but more importantly, we want to consistently meet that expectation every time you pick up that flavor. So if you're in Florida and you buy a homemade vanilla, you want it to taste exactly the way you remembered it to be. And so to do that, you want to make sure you don't outpace yourself. And so from the internal production side to the sales force, to each market. So from the 90s on, as we grew, we had more personnel to select, to take on new markets. But at the same time, it was still, to others, it would seem like a slow growth. For us, we started picking up some steam. It took us a while to get out of Texas. I mean, once you found the door, then okay, you can move. Texas is big.
Awesome.
Yes, we like, Texas is its own country. No, it sounds like it was kind of an organic growth. I know that they don't know about you in Pennsylvania because I was just in Pittsburgh and I talked about you being a guest and they're like, Bell, we've got Buddy Bell or something like that. I don't know, some other name. I'm like, no. You're going to have to eat Bluebell ice cream if you ever come down to Texas. And the company has been really successful over 117 years, I believe. Yes. But you've also gone through some very difficult times. In 2015, there was a discovery of a pathogen in certain products, and that was devastating to everyone. I know it was devastating to me. I remember when that happened because I had to take my Bluebell out. But it was devastating. It was also devastating to the employees.
Right.
Absolutely. So as a company, how was Bluebell able to navigate through the difficult times, and how did you, as a Christian, how did your faith come into play during this time?
Yeah, it's by far was the toughest. I worked for Bluebell for a little over 43 years, and in that time, this was very much the dark days for sure. Ice cream it's a fun product. It's a low risk product. It's not supposed to have a pathogen base because it's you pasteurize the mix and then you put it at minus 20 degrees, and so it's not considered an environment that would be able to bring that in, but at the same time, we had it. And I think the key to it is we owned it immediately. We literally, took all the equipment out, tore out the floors, the walls, ceiling, and we literally rebuilt the inside. We shut down from April of 2015, went back into the market in September, but our main plant in Brenham didn't start up until November. So we got real quiet, and yes, we spent more time, let's say, on our knees. Not that we weren't there before, but it was extremely devastating. And yet at the same time, we truly believed if we kept our eyes focused on doing the right thing, learned through the process, we invited outside help to come in, and we really today, everything we make before we send it out is tested. And so we, from the morning to the afternoon, and it will not go out until we know for sure.
That's great.
Which some have said you've gone a little too far. In my opinion, we didn't go too far.
Can I be a tester?
Oh, no.
There we go.
You'd be able to get me out of the door if I was a tester.
But anyway, it's a great question, and definitely you learn through all that. You ask about the faith. I will say in my own personal life, through other struggles, through other difficult times, the foundation of where do you run to when things get tough?
Right.
Where do you run to when the waves come over the bow of the boat? And I love Mark 4 where it talks about Jesus at the front of the boat sleeps. I never can understand that story because they're taking on water and Jesus is sleeping. And they go and wake him up, which I still can't. And he gets up and does a mic drop, peace be still, boom. And it just goes still. And I think, boy, Jesus, if you know you're the creator, you're right there, Heavenly Father. If you can sleep, then I'm going to sleep with you. And so you run back to scriptures that you use as your anchors, and if they're not already in you, you just remind yourself over and over that He is faithful, He is there, He loves you, and no matter what the outcome, stay faithful to it. So, whether it be Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or David, let's do this. And so we literally just kept our head down, stayed humble, and praise God. From that, we're back making ice cream.
That's very important. What you just said, stay humble, and I think that's true for any leader. You humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up. And so, even doing television, doing this little thing that we do, we have to remain humble because we realize it is God that has brought this to us.
Right.
And even as a national sportscaster, I always tried to be humble. I just never got used to anybody acting differently with me, right? And so I think that's so important. And I think when you're humble, in whatever position you hold, God is going to give you a blessing and exalt you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, no question.
Well, and I just want to go back a little bit because in 1987 you were working for Bluebell in your hometown of San Antonio, right?
That's right.
Where your parents were. Must have been fun being around family, I guess, then, right? But then you got a phone call, and that really changed your life. And I want to talk about that because you moved to Oklahoma City, Broken Bow, and you opened up a Bluebell plant there. So can you talk to me about and let us know, and even some of the people that are watching, I'm sure, just how to seek God's direction? I'd like to hear about that story.
At that age, especially too, I was still relatively young. The company was exploding, and so opportunities were there. Just keep your head down, keep working hard. But I was 2 miles from where I grew up, and so Mom and Dad were around the corner. If I wanted to run home and hey, Mom, make me a sandwich, that was just a really a true blessing.
Oh yeah.
And so when the opportunity came to go to Oklahoma, first the phone call came in and said, we're expanding and we're leaving Texas. We're going to open up a new market, not leaving, but opening up, expanding, not leaving. We never leave Texas.
No.
Got to make sure I get that in there. Otherwise, they'll be glad I'm retired. But to go into Oklahoma was close enough to be able to bring product back if needed or to continue with our expansion. Right. And so that was a tough decision. Do you leave for an opportunity? At the time, they said, it's going to be a new region. This would be an opportunity for you to grow with the company and move up, or do you stay where you're comfortable? And yet it was, I think back, I don't think that there was a wrong decision there. I think sometimes it's like I could choose between Dallas or Houston when I started my career. I think God takes what decisions that we make and say, okay, now at the same time, I was praying hard, God, which path do you want me to take?
Right.
Where do you want to use me? Because promotion sometimes can fog up the lens.
I want to continue with that. So while in Oklahoma, there was a corporate retreat that you went to with your supervisors. And what you thought would be a meeting full of praise turned out to be disappointing. And so would you share a little bit about that meeting and kind of what happened and how that actually redirected your life?
Sure. In fact, I put a whole chapter is centered around that very thing because, you have those road to Damascus moments. Now as a Christian, so one that I was seeing, the light, but at the same time, when I did go to Oklahoma City, I thought, well, this is going to be exciting and possibly promoted. And it got real quiet.
Oh.
It got real quiet. And I kept thinking, okay, well, sooner or later. So when I got this phone call, we'd like to meet with you after our dinner. I'm thinking, this is it. I mean, shaky moment. This is what it's all about.
I've been waiting for
Exactly.
And so I go in the room, and I could tell immediately that the atmosphere of the room was not the kind of atmosphere. There was no balloons. There was no confetti. About a page and a half, single space, handwritten, of things that either I wasn't doing that I should be, or things I should be doing that I wasn't, or where they thought I would be. And, I took it all in. I won't lie. It set me back. I listened. Well, good that I didn't sit there and argue, but I went back to the hotel and I sat down at the end of the bed and I remember praying, God, I don't get this. You asked me to move here. I left family. I left all this. I thought, this is where you want to be. I thought this was your calling. And I'm telling you as clear as I can tell you without it being totally audible. I heard him say to me, you're not here for your promotion. You're here for my purpose.
Ooh, yes.
I got some chills on
Yeah.
that.
Well,
That's
and every time
powerful.
I think
Yeah.
about it, the same thing. And it just
Wow.
like, you didn't come
Yes.
here to get promoted.
Right.
You're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was still upset. Don't get me wrong. I thought, well, I wish I could have caught on to this a little bit earlier. But, and I thought, I could leave, I could be upset, or I could listen to what he's saying. Because if God, you brought me here for a purpose, I've obviously drifted. And so therefore I need to drift back and get locked back into where you have me. And I remember saying, whatever it is. So now fast forward the day they said, would you take over the plant in Broken Arrow as a plant manager? At the same time, they were promoting someone to take over the region. For the reason I went up there, now I'm moving over to the plant, and I said, absolutely. If that's where you think I'm supposed to be,
Wow.
let's do it. And so thankfully, it was God's way. Again, one scoop at a time, he was opening that door. So for 6 years, I saw the other side. You give me a half gallon of spoon, I become a pretty good salesman. But all of a sudden, I've got to put in, be in charge of what goes into the carton. And I think, oh man, this is pressure because all my people that I've worked with, friends, peers, you name it. And so I knew though that this was of God, and so I said, let's go after it. So for 6 years, I really thought that's where my career would end. I would run that plant, and we were going to be, invest in the people there. And then 6 years later, I got the phone call to go to Brenham.
Yeah, but
Wow.
to be CEO, you really have to understand the entire business, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't just be on the sales side. You got to understand the production side as well.
Right.
But after that experience, you really learned how to wait on God's timing and what you said in your book. And you compared that to the growth of the Chinese bamboo tree. I thought that was so interesting. Can you explain to our
Sure.
audience that analogy?
And y'all are looking at me like, what?
Fast.
That
It's fast and strong. Yeah. That's all I know.
I heard the story of the Chinese bamboo tree, and it really stayed with me for the fact, again, it's a chapter in the book called The Chinese Bamboo Tree, if you can't find it. It's very clear. It's an interesting story from the standpoint that the bamboo, there's I don't have 500 different type of bamboos, but the Chinese bamboo tree takes, from the time you put a seed into the ground to the time it comes out of the ground and grows, it grows anywhere from 90 feet to, in some cases, over 100, 110, 120 feet. But what's interesting about it is that you place the seed in the ground and you have to water it and cultivate and weed and water, fertilize, cultivate for almost 5 years. You don't see any growth at all.
Really?
But when it comes out of the ground, at the end of that period of time, in about a 5 to 6 week period, it'll grow 90 feet.
Wow.
Wow.
So I asked the question in the book, how long does it take to grow a Chinese bamboo tree? 5 years or 5 weeks? And the answer is 5 years. And so how I relate that to me is sometimes I don't understand, God, what are you doing? I'm here, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I feel like I'm becoming stagnant. At the same time, if you stay faithful and home in onto the fertilizing and the growing and the watering of the Word, He's preparing you for something.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, out of the ground comes, but not for the bamboo tree's glory, but for Jesus' glory. Yeah.
So true. And then you ended up leaving Oklahoma, right?
Yes, went back to Texas.
Moved back to Brenham, headquarters of Bluebell, started in Brenham as the general sales manager of the plant. And then I just want you, because you describe yourself in the book as a servant leader. So can you share what that looks like at a top level as a leader at Bluebell?
The greatest asset of Bluebell Creameries isn't the ice cream. I believe it's the people that make the ice cream. Especially on the production side, that they're inside, it's a repetitive job, that they have to be able to know that what they do is just as meaningful. And so that's where I invest a lot of my time, is especially as I became the CEO, president, walking the production floor and going to the different plants. We have 67 branches, so it's a little more difficult now to get out to the different branches, like distribution centers. But Romans 12 has such a good roadmap to this, to live, offer ourselves as living sacrifices, and don't think yourself as any better than anybody else, and love, truly love.
Yes. Now, in August in 2007, shortly after Bluebell's 100th anniversary, you and your wife, Anita, had an opportunity to visit former President George H.W. Bush and his wife, Barbara, up in Kennebunkport, Maine. What was that experience like?
It was unbelievable. It really was. We had just celebrated our 100th anniversary as a company, and he had made a tape for us. Cool. He and the Cruzy family were close, the ones that had run the company for over 100 years. And so I remember very well packing for this trip. We were already going to go there anyway. I told my wife, when this event is over with in Brenham, we're going to take a trip, and we're going to get as far away from Brenham as we can, just to unwind. I go, where do you want to go? And she goes, let's go to Maine. And I thought, let's do it. So that's where and then we reached out and they said, absolutely, come by. I told them, I called and said, can I bring you some ice cream?
Of course.
Because we're not in Maine. And so, yeah, come on. So, but I remember getting ready for the trip. And in fact, again, I have a chapter on this. I yelled out and said, honey, what do you wear when you meet the president? Because you're going to their house, but you're meeting the president of the United States. Right. And yet at the same time when we got there, I remember that he was in jeans, very casual, and it literally was like going to family. They welcomed us with open arms. We met with him for a while. Then we went up to the main house and spent some time with Barbara. And then we came back and at the last got to spend a little bit more time with the president. But, the bottom line was he just wanted us to come by. It didn't matter what we wore. And again, I relate that to going to church. God just wants your heart. He just wants you to come.
So let's go forward to 2017. That is when you were asked to be president and CEO of Bluebell. And I know you've talked a little bit about it, but it would be easy to just say yes, and not prayerfully consider a decision like that. But I'm sure you did. And what was it like to oversee that entire operation?
Honest was not something what I would say would be on my radar. Now, I will say earlier in the career as far as moving and potential promotions, but the Cruzy family is so iconic with Bluebell. They took over in 1919, and so for 3 generations, just did a phenomenal job, not just making the ice cream, but again, the culture that we've talked about. So when the board that day said, when Paul announced his retirement, they said that, Rick, you're going to take over. You should be getting my wife in here, because I remember I didn't even get the chance to call her before the word had trickled out, and they're calling her and saying, you need to call your husband and talk to him. And of course, the proverbial, honey, they've just named me president. No, really, what's going on? If it had not been for the journey, if it had not been for those steps along the way, I immediately sensed that this was what God was saying. But again, it wasn't for Ricky Dickson. I'm putting you here for a purpose. And so, of course, we were going still through. We were back in the markets. We were trying to get to all the markets that we had pulled out of. And so I knew that I had a responsibility to do probably, well, no question, the most humbling thing that I was asked to do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ricky, for being here on Pop Talk. You ended up retiring in 2023 after 43 years.
Actually, 24.
24, okay.
It was supposed to be 23, but we...
Yeah, okay. So
March of this year. So not that I pushed it any, but...
You've left a legacy. I know you're going to hear, well done, good and faithful servant one day. And we're just so excited about your journey. We hope everyone will read your book. It's, once again, one scoop at a time. Everyone needs to buy it. It's a great read. I went through it, and it will give you some insight into Ricky's faith journey as God led him, as you heard here, throughout his work with Bluebell. If you want to connect with Ricky, his website is rickydickson.com. It's RICKYDICKSON.com.
And we would love it if you would connect with us here at Pearls of Promise Ministries, the producer of Pop Talk. Our website is pearlsofpromiseministries.com. You can email us at info@pearlsofpromiseministries.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on X at Pop Talk Media or at Pearls of Promise. We're on Instagram at pop_ministries, and you can find all of our past Pop Talk television shows on Pearls of Promise Ministries YouTube channel.
Also, thanks to over our 20 Pop Talk television platforms, we're grateful for our production company, Grace Point Media. For all your media needs, go to gracepoint.media.
And we want to say that Pop Talk is now an award-winning show, thanks to the Lord and to the Praise Factor Awards for honoring us in Atlanta over the weekend. Also, thanks to Milton Wallace of All Nations TV, one of our platforms, for nominating us.
And Lisa was actually awarded Best International Television Host. Lisa, we're so proud of you.
Well, I couldn't do it without you guys, really. You guys, it's a team effort, so we're just
proud.
excited. It is a Pop Talk Award. And that is Pop Talk for today. We're just ordinary girls and a guy.
God turned into pearls. Have a wonderful week, everyone.